Our inspirational reading today comes from the book Who is With Me by Anne Meyer McKeever. And in the foreword, she says, "Greetings. I am the luckiest girl in the universe. This was what I exclaimed when I was told my mission for living on planet Earth. If you read this story, you will probably realize that you too have a marvelous mission for your life. I am urged to write this book because my life is the most amazing story I have ever heard. This book brings to you a vibration which can lift, inspire, or heal you, or it may lead you into an experience of brilliant enlightenment. You may be a person who has studied many advanced teachings and enjoyed many feedings of spiritual insight. Or you may be a person who has never given much attention to spiritual matters. Either way, I believe that reading my story may open within you a new door of amazement and wonder. I believe that through reading this book, something beautiful will happen to you, not through any human idea, but through the power of the Christ Masters Babaji, Jesus, Konar, Gia, Iaya, Brother Francis, the Holy Spirit, and the beautiful many Christ beings who came down upon the earth in physical form in our time, to give to the world a new teaching and lift all humans into a new concept of our true divinity. My story is your story. To God be the glory. Love, Anne McKeever." All right, and to speak to us today is a very special light at the teaching of the Inner Christ. She has taken basically all of the classes that were offered. She is a devout student of spirituality of all makes and models. And she is a true leader in every respect. And so today, I welcome, speaking on Who is With Me, which is the title of this book. Please welcome with me, Cathryne Bruce Johnson.
Thank you, leader, teacher, and Christ counselor, Jennifer Allen-Prather. Who is with me? Who is with me? That was the title of Dr. Anne Meyer McKeever's autobiography, Who is With Me. Great book. Lots of bookmarks, you might notice. Who is with me? And I asked some questions. Am I more than I seem to be? Whoever I think I am I more than I seem to be? Am I more than a mere human having a human experience? And what is the spiritual yearning within me? Sometimes I feel, maybe you feel this too, sometimes I feel forsaken. I feel like I'm on my own, I'm a little bit lost. But there is a presence about us, within us, that we can contact. And that's what Anne did. Today, I'd like to share Anne's story of that incredible day on October 19th, 1962, which was 62 years ago. Anne was 48, and she had a mystical, spiritual, sexual experience with Babaji, Master Babaji. And it brought forth the seed idea for what we now know as the teaching of the Inner Christ. So on that day, 62 years ago, October 19th, Anne talked about that in chapter 2. She says, that's the title of it, Who is With Me? Who is with me in this room? She had she had a morning, got the kids off to school, the husband off to school, she did her chores in her kitchen, and she walked into the living room that morning. It was a Tuesday morning. She felt an incredible presence. And it was so strong. She said out loud, "Who is with me? Who is with me in this room?" And there was no answer, but an answer came later. And just a week prior to that, just a week prior, she had woken up in the middle of the night, and she walked into her living room, and she saw all the lights were on in her living room, her dining room, and her kitchen. Mysteriously, all the lights were turned on. And she also recalled in her book the initial experience 6 months earlier. This was, so it must have been in April. It was the Saturday before Easter in 1962. She was on a bus with an armful of groceries, and she sat down in the bus, and she became aware that someone was reading her mind. So she looked over her shoulder, and she noticed a man, an older man, a slim man, white hair, sitting behind her. And she thought, maybe he's a spiritual teacher. She felt that he was there. But she kind of felt it was rude that someone would be reading her mind and in her mind. So I thought it was pretty amusing where she just said, "Tune out, boy," mentally. "Tune out, boy. You don't belong in my head." And she said it was like a window shade going down. That was one of her techniques, kind of a psychic protection. She put down the window shade in her mind, and the window shade went right back up. And so she thought, well, I'll just think about my music, because she was a professional singer, and she was trying to rehearse the music in her mind. And then it wasn't working. She could feel that presence. And she says on page 2 of her book, "I can't think when someone is eavesdropping on my mind. To hell with it." Now, that was very strong language for a proper matron of 1962. And then she got off the bus in Mission Hill, San Diego. But by the time she got home, and she was thinking about it, and she was just thinking, he must be a very wonderful spiritual teacher. There was something very, very special about this stranger on the bus. And then she thought, and I said, to hell with it. I swore at him. And so she went to her room, and she says, "Hey, you man on the bus, I'm sorry. Please give me a second chance." And she said, somehow I knew he could hear me. Well, he did. And that leads us 6 months going forward, October 19th, 1962. Anne had made arrangements with her husband to go to a concert, Old Russ Auditorium, which was a high school auditorium. And her husband had something to do with the ticket sales, so they were there early. And so she thought she would go into the seating. She picked a seat with an aisle seat on her left side. That was for her husband. And as people started coming in for the concert, 3 people came to her aisle, 2 men and a woman. And they were talking to each other about who would sit where. And the woman went first, the man went first, and then the second man sat down beside her. And the first thing she realized is that this man's subconscious was crystal clear. He didn't have any baggage, didn't have any worries, any doubts. And she also noticed that the man was uncomfortable with his skin. He was kind of itching his wrists and squirming in his seat. And we know that this was Babaji. And can you imagine the frequency of of Master Babaji coming into a physical body. It must have been uncomfortable to come into density. And he accidentally kicked her foot. I remember her talking about this in talks. And she thought that maybe he was worried about, accidentally kicking her. And she said in her mind, if this man wants to, let him kick me again. I mean, he was a very attractive man to Anne. She was Anne Rosser then. But, and she felt like he got the message because he seemed to relax. Like he didn't seem to be worried anymore about offending her. And then she said in her book, three words entered her mind like silver bullets. I like you. She received that. And she mentally said, well, I like you too, but what are we going to do? I mean, her husband was sitting right there on the left side of her, and she had something going on with the guy on her right. And she said she had an experience, she closed her eyes, she had an experience of male love around her. Because the other thing that Anne Meyer McKeever did is she brought forth the woman awareness work, which is another talk. And and then she said she experienced a white cloud of light from her forehead, and she could feel it go forward, and then even though her eyes were closed, she could see the man beside her. So perhaps, astrally she was outside of her physical body, and she could sense that the man beside her was sexually aroused. And she was too, and that's where she's trying to pull that shade. And the next thing she'd do, she could see like her milky white body, outside of her physical body, just kind of plop right over on the man beside her. And she said she had all the feelings of sexual intercourse. There was something happening here that expressed in her feeling nature as sexual intercourse. And she looked down and she saw with her eyes wide open that the right side of her body had disappeared into the left side of the body of the man beside her. And that between them there were these waves of red energy between them. And this was the vibrations of life energy being transmitted to Anne spiritually to her physical body. And she wrote that sexual experience with Babaji was a unification, and the way the energy was the spiritual transmitting of energy to Anne, to her body, and to the physical vibration of the earth. And she said there was a wonderful afterglow, and he somehow hit her, like his elbow hit her in the middle of her back somehow, on her heart chakra, and opened her heart chakra. I mean, can you imagine this experience? And you're just ordinary at a concert. And so she said she woke up the next morning. I'm going to look at this, page 10 of The Being of Christ. We've read this before, but one of my favorite parts of the book. She says, when I woke up the next morning, I was a changed person. The strange man was talking to me from within my mind and telling me mysterious and wonderful things. I realized that the man on the bus had come back to me. And this is the teaching that came to her. I now know that we human beings are not mere humans, but that each one of us is a stream of consciousness from the highest universal level of vibration down to the physical level, with an individual body and identity on each level. And each of our many bodies has its own name, its own and therefore each of us has innumerable bodies and innumerable levels of vibration, innumerable spiritual identities. Each of us is an individual God expressing through many levels, many Christ levels, as well as our human self. So in other words, it's the spiritual being having a human experience, and the human experience its divine nature, all at the same time. And she said, I realized there was no such teaching on the earth, that this teaching was only in my mind. It was a new teaching, not yet established on the earth. And, I would say that, though this was a unique experience we know about for Anne Meyer McKeever, Babaji's vibration, I'm sure, came down to many on the earth, not just Anne. But what was so incredible is this idea that it's not just Jesus the Christ. And Anne always said that was page 1. Jesus came in as the exemplar Christ, the model. Jesus came down and said, this is how you live your life as a Christ. And with this transference of awareness, now we're living in page 2, at the age where now we all are realizing ourselves as Christ beings, having a human experience. And we each are realizing our streams of identities. We say at the Teacher of the Inner Christ, everyone a living Christ. We're a living Christ. And I remember Peter Meyer, who was the co-founder with Anne, they married, he would say the teaching of the inner Christ is the teaching of your inner Christ, and the teaching of your inner Christ, and the teaching of your inner Christ to you. Because what we've learned is our spiritual self-authority, that we don't have to go outside for someone to tell us what's right and what is our truth. We go within. It's already there. And the unique thing, I think, that I found at the Teacher of the Inner Christ, I haven't seen it in other areas, is that with that inner contact, that vibrational frequency of ourselves at the higher frequencies, higher self, we call it the Christ awareness, I am self, all of those identities, those bodies of frequency, have a signal, a unique identity signal that we get. So we know when we're connected, and it's not a faker spirit outside, as we call. And that's when the most powerful thing, our conscious Christ contact, the name, the signal, the identity. All right, so that's what we have at Teaching of the Inner Christ. That's the value of our beautiful teaching. And I want to say, please go to our website, teachingoftheinnerchrist.org, to learn more about our classes. We have a beautiful book, Being a Christ, our basic textbook, where we learn and grow about meditation, prayer, and channeling, bringing forth that Christ vibration into the world. And also Anne's beautiful book, Who is With Me, by Dr. Anne Meyer McKeever. It's a wild read. I say that every time. It's wonderful. It's hard to put down once the story is started. And because we have our spiritual self-authority, our inner Christ contact, we lift these low vibrations we come across. We lift the air thoughts, our fears, our doubts, or dark things we see in the world. We bring our light and we lift it to its own Christ vibration. It's very powerful. So I would like to encourage everyone to take that time to meditate, to nurture that Christ awareness, that Christ consciousness through everyday contact, even a short amount of time. And also to pray using our word, the power of the word that we receive in our insights for meditation in prayer, where we speak the truth, we claim the truth, the good for us, we claim the good with others, and call it the great good. I like being in the great good. And that we just embrace spiritual self-care, embrace our Christ nature. We are more than we seem to be at the human level. We can heal and lift, and we can embrace the joy of the Christ that we receive through our meditations. And may I ask, who is with you? Find out. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Cathryne. That was powerful. I love hearing that story. It's an incredible story, and some would say, nah, that couldn't happen, but it did happen. Thank you for that. All right. And so now, I believe there's something there that I need. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And so now we have a time for our offering of tithes and gifts. And if you found value in this talk, in this session today at the teaching of the inner Christ, we encourage you to go to our website at teachingoftheinnerchrist.org. Click on the very top right-hand corner where it says donate. And we would love your donations if you choose to help support the teaching of the inner Christ all over the world, and to support you with whatever it is that you need with the tools that we have here at the teaching. And we know that we honor God when we say this from Malachi chapter 3, verse 10. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and try now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you such blessing, there will not be room enough to receive it. That's a wonderful visual. So thank you for your donations. We appreciate you very much.